Cousins, Emmeline, and Richard, are passengers of a Victorian-era ship. The children are traveling on with Richard's father, Arthur, and the ship's crew. Emmeline is an orphan, while Richard only has his father. While the kids are exploring around the ship, they discover photos of naked women in a drawer. Richard laughs when he sees the pictures, while Emmeline is embarrassed. The ship's cook, Paddy Button, sees them snooping, so he decides to punish them. As he is about to hit Emmeline, a fire breaks out. The crew starts panicking and jumping in the ocean. The captain instructs the cook to take the kids and Arthur to safety. However, Arthur was steered to a different boat and got separated from the kids. As they paddle away from the ship, it explodes, releasing a thick cloud of smoke. Due to the smoke, there was no clear visibility, and they couldn't hear each other. Paddy and Richard shout for the others, but they hear back no response. The three of them are alone in the vast ocean with no food or water. The following day, Emmeline is awakened by the smell of flowers. Their boat is now floating near an island, and they couldn't help but celebrate. They are finally safe. They explore the island and find some drinkable water and fruits. Emmeline even finds a barrel of rum, which makes Paddy happy. While they were enjoying their little feast, Richard finds a human skull. Paddy rushes them out of that area, and takes them near the beachfront. Later, they make a makeshift camp to have some shelter. Paddy takes care of the children, and teaches them survival skills. Slowly, they build their own little hut by the beach. The kids are even enjoying themselves, despite their situation. One day, while Paddy is gathering some food, he sees something horrible. Someone seems to have just sacrificed an animal on a rock. He rushes back to their hut, and makes the kids promise to never go to that part of the island again. To make sure that the kids listen, he tells them that the bogeyman lives there and he will eat them. He tells them that it is the law, and they should never break it. One night, Paddy drinks too much and falls asleep by the beach. Then by early morning, he wakes up and swims drunkenly to the ocean. Later, the kids wake up, and discover Paddy's cold body on the other side of the beach. Emmeline faints, seeing him dead. The two kids are now alone on the island. Emmeline asks Richard to take her away from there, so they sail to another place. They build a new hut and then starts to live there. Several years have passed by, and the little children have grown into young adults. While Richard is taking a swim, he sees a pearl and brings it up for Emmeline. He wakes up Emmeline, and tells her that it's Christmas Day. Emmeline gets excited when she hears that Santa left them presents. But she soon realizes that Richard did it all and thanks him with a kiss. One day, while Emmeline was taking a bath, she experiences her first period and gets frightened seeing blood coming out of her. She panics, and yells for Richard. Richard rushes to her aid, but Emmeline turns him away. Once Emmeline has dressed, Richard asks why did that happen. He thinks that she might have injured herself, and he wants to see the wound. But Emmeline doesn't want him to. This makes Richard mad. He thinks it's unfair how Emmeline keeps secrets from him, while he tells her everything about him. While watching the sunset, Richard asks Emmeline where her parents are. Emmeline says they're in heaven, and says Richard's father might be there too. But Richard believes that his father will come on a boat to take them away from the island one day. Then he brings up Paddy, but Emmeline doesn't want to talk about it. She still seems to be affected by Paddy's death. So Richard changes the topic. He asks her questions he doesn't know the answer to. He wishes that a book with all the answers could drop from the sky, so he could know everything. During dinner, Richard was staring into space, so Emmeline tried to make him laugh. She succeeds, but Richard suddenly hears a sound. But they don't know if it's the bogeyman or another human. Emmeline starts to get scared, but Richard promises that he will protect her. Luckily, nothing happens. One day, a storm hits the island. In their home, Richard was playing a pan flute which was annoying Emmeline. She asks him to play something else, but he wouldn't budge. Emmeline pokes him in the butt to make him stop, and they end up running around the hut. Richard chases Emmeline to the beachfront. He was able to catch her, and pin her down the sand. Emmeline jokingly promises to get revenge on him. Richard watches, as the clueless Emmeline swims at night. He joins her, and they both swim naked in the ocean. One day, Emmeline hears that weird drumming sound again. She follows the sound inside the jungle. Emmeline comes across an altar. She sees blood dripping from the stone head figure, so she runs away. Emmeline tells Richard what she saw. She says that Paddy was wrong. It's not the bogeyman, it's God. Richard gets mad at Emmeline for breaking the law the Paddy set. After their argument, Emmeline decides to sleep. She dreams of Richard drowning and dying. On waking up, she tells Richard about her bad dream. He comforts her and promises that he'll always be with her. Their hug ended up with them kissing passionately. But before it could go any further, Emmeline stops and moves away from Richard. By now, Richard has become physically attracted to Emmeline. However, she doesn't reciprocate his feelings. Having pressure down there, he hides from Emmeline and relieves himself off. A ship appears for the first time in years, which makes Richard really excited. He runs back to the hut to tell Emmeline about the news. However, he discovers that Emmeline did not light the signal fire. As a result, the ship passes by without seeing them. Richard angrily confronts Emmeline. He decides to build a boat and leave without her, but his boat sinks. Emmeline laughs at his failure and tells him that they're never leaving the island. It is their home now, and they will live there now and forever. The two of them ends up fighting again. They throw coconuts at each other, and Emmeline ends up hitting him in the heat. Richard falls, and she rushes to his side to apologize. He slaps her across the face, then he kicks Emmeline out of their hut. Emmeline took shelter by the rocks when it rained really hard. She was left with no home and food, but he didn't take pity on her. After secretly revisiting the altar, Emmeline accidentally steps on a venomous stonefish. She got sick and weak. She asks Richard to take her to God. Richard carries Emmeline to the altar and prays for her to get better. Thankfully, Emmeline recovers. Richard confesses that he never wants to lose her. Slowly, Emmeline regains strength and her health improves. Soon, the two of them start swimming naked. By the shore, Richard asks Emmeline to kiss him, and she does. Still naked, they kiss again. They slowly discover how to make love. And they become lovers and hold a wedding. As a result of their new discovery, Emmeline gets pregnant. However, they didn't know it yet. Emmeline asks Richard to feel her stomach. They were stunned to feel a movement. Richard thought it was just Emmeline's stomach, but it wasn't. Months later, Richard is left alone by the shore. He hears the weird sound again, and decides to find the source. In hiding, he discovers that it was a group of natives from a nearby island. They were performing a ritual in front of the stone-head figure on the altar. The natives sacrificed a captured enemy. Richard is horrified by what he saw, and runs to find Emmeline. He shouts for her, and finds her about to give birth by a tree. Emmeline gives birth to a baby boy. They were surprised that Emmeline had a baby. They bring the baby back to the hut and try to feed him. When the fruits and coconut water didn't work, Emmeline brought the baby to her chest, and it stopped crying. A few days later, Richard tells Emmeline about the natives. He thinks that they should have listened to Paddy and never came to the other side. Richard promises that he will protect Emmeline and the baby. One day, Richard comes back to their original home site and discovers Paddy's bones. The new parents are enjoying their time with their baby. A few months later, the baby grew up to a toddler. They names him Paddy. While the family was playing in the mud, a ship led by Richard's father, Arthur, approaches the island and sees them. Instead of asking for help, they walk away. Since they are covered in mud, Arthur assumes that they are natives. One day, the family takes a trip back to their original home site. While Richard looks for bananas, Emmeline and Paddy stay by the shore. Due to her reminiscing, Emmeline didn't notice her son picking up some of the scarlet berries on the boat. These were the same berries the old Paddy warned her about when she was little. They will make you sleep and never wake up again. Emmeline and Paddy slowly drift away into the ocean as they wait for Richard. Paddy tosses one of the oars into the water. Emmeline calls for Richard. He swims into the water to reach the oar. However, a shark was following him. To save Richard, Emmeline throws the other oar. Now they are stuck in the middle of the water again. To stop the boat from drifting further away, they both paddle their hands into the water. The boat was being carried by the current, while the shark was circling them. After drifting for days, Richard and Emmeline wake up, and find Patty eating the poisoned berries. Hopeless, they also eat the berries, and lay down to await their death. A few hours later, Arthur's crew finds them. Arthur asks his crew if they are dead. The crew answers, "No sir, they are asleep." The movie comes to its end. Enjoy other movie explanations on our channel. Thanks for watching.